Let's check back in with the CBC's Tanya Fletcher. Tanya, what's going on there now?
Dan, it's funny. You look at everyone, they're either glued to their cell phones or to that big TV screen behind me, just waiting for any indication of the latest results. There's actually a room right next door as well with about twice as many people here. And it's still neck and neck. This race has been so close that basically everyone is waiting until the final results are in to confirm, because it's simply too close to make any projections at this point. So this waiting game will continue much longer than expected, and yes, Dan, much closer than expected as well.
Tanya, and speaking with the people who have been there, as we mentioned, Kennedy Stewart was looking to be the front runner in a number of polls that were taken throughout this campaign. Are they surprised that it's this close?
Yes, I think a lot of surprise. I mean, the people here, I wouldn't say were overly confident coming in, but as you mentioned, nearly every poll leading up until today gave him a favorable majority. And so it was kind of going to be no surprise if he won, and it would have been, and it will be, a big upset if he does, in fact, lose to Ken Sim. A lot of people also keeping a close eye on Shauna Sylvester. And beyond that, you look at the mix of the councillors that have been elected, and you see what the mayor who is going to come up next is going to have to deal with to get support on council and to get everybody on board. But, you know, it's been discussed as well how similar Kennedy Stewart's platform and campaign has been to Gregor Robertson. If you talk about perhaps passing a torch, if there is one, of the Gregor Robertson era, of all the candidates, Kennedy Stewart was one with the most similar policies. And so a lot of people say, you know, will we really see much change under Kennedy Stewart's leadership? And he always points back himself to his experience on the federal level when he was MP for Burnaby South, NDP MP, and he really brought that experience, he says, in working with the senior levels of government, with the province and with the feds, to use those connections and use that experience to bring more affordable housing to Vancouver and a number of other fronts as well. So that's what we're looking at. That's what he stands to gain and also stands to lose. So we'll wait and see where it goes from here, Dan.
We have to ask you one more question, Tanya. In and around some of those other things, we know that Kennedy Stewart focused heavily on affordable housing. He promised to bring in 25,000 new units beyond what the plan was based on what Vision had. Many were wondering what else he was going to champion, whether it was transportation, whether he would commit to an extension of the Broadway subway line out to UBC. What are some of those other issues that he was putting forward that perhaps didn't get as much attention other than housing?
Yeah, and you mentioned it there, Dan, and earlier I illustrated it here. I've got the printout of his platform right here, the PDF, and you look at page 1, I'll flip to that now, and you can see more affordable housing is page 1, and of course that has been the big issue, not just in Vancouver but all around BC, all the municipalities. Affordable housing province-wide is the main issue. Contrast that to transportation. I mean, under Gregor Robertson in the past few years in Vancouver, transit has been arguably the headline issue as well. And going back to this document, again, I don't know if it's any indication, but transit takes up half a page at the very back of this platform, as opposed to about 10 pages on housing. And there's really, the only thing of substance on the transit platform was that he's hoping to extend the Broadway subway all the way out to UBC and perhaps increase some bus service. But you look at how transit seems to have taken a back seat to some of the other issues. The opioid crisis, he talks about democratic reform, proportional representation, changing possibly to a ward system here in Vancouver because the current at-large system isn't really working, Kennedy Stewart has said. You look at the environment, so that's been another sticking point. Of course, he was very visibly arrested up on Burnaby Mountain alongside Green Party leader Elizabeth May, and he made no qualms about making the environment a sticking point when he was MP for Burnaby South, and now he's brought that as well into his municipal bid. So we'll see how much piggybacking of that federal name recognition he can really bring in to these results here, and you know, that's that's what everyone said. Kennedy Stewart has arguably the biggest name recognition in this huge slate of candidates, and even running as an independent without the juggernaut of that Vision Vancouver candidate to compete against. You've got now this extremely tight race between him and Ken Sim. So we'll see where the voters decided to put their allegiance and how that affects the city from here on out.
A lot of people waiting. Tanya Fletcher, thank you very much.
We're going to go back to Tanya Fletcher, who is with the independent mayoral candidate Kennedy Stewart at the Waldorf Hotel in Vancouver. She's with his camp anyhow. And among the people with Tanya tonight is a longtime NDP MP, Libby Davies. Hello to you, Tanya, and hello to you, Libby.
Stephen, I can barely hear you. The party's really just ramping up here at the Waldorf, but I've got a familiar face with me, former MP Libby Davies, represented Vancouver East for many years, and this is a familiar venue for you as well.
Yeah, well, it's an icon in East Vancouver for sure, the Waldorf, but also this is where my last election in 2015.
So perhaps maybe a good luck charm, maybe for Kennedy Stewart.
I hope so.
Now, you publicly endorsed him for mayor. Talk a little bit about, he's running as an independent, and for the first time in a very long time, we're not seeing that Vision Vancouver power machine put forward a mayoral candidate. So what do you think it's going to take for Kennedy to really grab that headstrong here in this election?
Well, it's a very different election this year. Vancouver historically has had very strong slates and party machines and so on.
Very true, and I know, personal connections aside, you both have one thing in common, both being former NDP MPs. Yeah. And I know he's played that up a lot in his campaigning and in his platform. He always points to his experience on a federal level in Ottawa. So what do you think from that experience he can bring to Vancouver on a municipal level?
Well, I think working on the federal scene and being in that big arena, you really learn how to negotiate with the players that are there.
Yeah, no doubt housing the headline issue of this election, but I wanted to speak a little bit as well about the environment. He took a very hard stance specifically with Trans Mountain. He was up on Burnaby Mountain getting arrested alongside Green Party leader Elizabeth May, and people now are saying, well, he's perhaps softened a little bit. He's all things to all people, and yes, that is still a part of his true belief system, but how much of that flashpoint issue, specifically with Trans Mountain in Metro Vancouver, how big of an issue is that for him?
Well, the sense I have of Kennedy Stewart is that he has very strong values and principles, but he's someone who wants to sit down and actually get things done.
Kennedy Stewart has been ahead in all of the polls essentially leading up until today, so sum up how the campaign is probably feeling right about now.
Well, I can feel the buzz in the room. People are excited. I feel excited. I feel nervous.
CBC reporter Tanya Fletcher is out there covering the Kennedy Stewart campaign. She is at Campaign HQ. Tanya, I don't know if you can hear me. It sounds very loud there, but what's going on?
Stephen, I have no idea what you just asked me. It is so loud here. I'm just going to go ahead and describe the scene. So, the room beside me is actually filling up quicker and quicker, and there was a noticeable change in the atmosphere here just a moment ago. As you know, this margin was within a few hundred votes, that then grew to a few thousand, and people here went from being anxious and a little uncertain, a little surprised, I think, to now more relieved. You're seeing people hugging, high-fiving. Anytime the updated results come on the screen, they're chanting Kennedy because they're so sure that he is, in fact, going to win. Again, still not official, too close to call for sure to confirm anything, but the people here are much more relaxed. The drinks are flowing, as you may be able to see. Perhaps at this point in the night, some of those are Red Bulls because it is going on and on much longer than expected. And a little bit earlier tonight as we were setting up here, because at the Waldorf, as you know, it is a little bit cozy, and logistically to handle all of the media here, it is a little bit tight. And so as we were setting up, I was speaking with one of the campaign coordinators who was taking me through kind of the plan for the night, and she said, afterwards, Kennedy Stewart isn't going to come down until it's confirmed, until the concession speeches start. And I stopped her and I looked and I said, concession speech? What do you mean? Are you not expecting him to win? Is that an indication? And she laughed and brushed it off and said she misspoke. And later on in the night, when it was Ken Sim was right neck and neck with Kennedy Stewart, she came back over and she said, You know, I hope that wasn't some kind of poor foreshadowing or premonition. I really hope I didn't jinx it by saying that. But now she's got a smile on her face, and these people here are quite excited. So again, still a waiting game, but much more jubilant atmosphere than it has been the past couple of hours as we still continue to wait here.
Tanya Fletcher, thank you so much. I know you can't hear a word I'm saying to you right now, but we sure appreciate that report. That was fantastic.